Welcome everyone to the official Dark Time Season 1 recap. Season 1 equates to about 5.5 hours long, and today I'll be attempting to recap the entire thing in about 10 minutes. For all the new people watching, you can thank me later. P.S. I'm gonna talk really fast. At the very beginning, we see Marty, the main protagonist, awaken in the destroyed city of Flinteria. Unfortunately, Flinteria is being attacked by the Masked Man, a powerful wielder of magic also known as the Necromancer. When confronting the Masked Man, Marty escapes by boat and leaves immediately to the kingdom of Gisdreif. Meanwhile, the Masked Man kills more civilians of Flinteria, including Quinn's sister, Rebecca. Meanwhile, in Gisdreif, Marty warns its leaders, Knight and Bryce, about a potential attack from the Necromancer. With this news, Knight and Bryce agree to evacuate their city. Everyone in Gisdreif settles down on a boat as it sails towards Maplewood. However, everything goes south when the Masked Man secretly kidnaps a child and kills her. This causes panic throughout the ship. When searching for the missing girl on the boat, the Masked Man reveals himself and Bryce tries to stop him. Realizing that there's little hope, Marty and Knight decide to jump off the boat. Bryce tries one final time to defeat the Masked Man and somehow succeeds by deflecting the magic onto the Masked Man. This causes an explosion and kills everyone left on the ship. Marty and Knight wash up to the shore of a mysterious kingdom, Oakhold, hoping to find Bryce and any survivors. It's here where they meet Quinn, another victim of the Necromancer. Together, the three settle down in a house near the center of the city. Quick note, the odd part about Oakhold is that the Baron instills a rule where no person can be seen outside at night, otherwise they go to jail. Now back to the plot. The next day, Marty and Knight tell their story to the Baron. When he doesn't believe the Masked Man exists, his wife, Shay, accuses Marty of having been spotted outside during the night, despite him having stayed inside. The Baron believes his wife and throws Marty in jail without question. Pretty odd, right? With Marty in jail, Quinn and Knight must try and find him. Knight sneaks around Oakhold in the early morning and stumbles upon a thief trying to steal from a market stand. The thief is chased by a guard and Knight follows, hoping that this chase may lead her to Marty. However, Knight eventually loses them, along with her hope. Marty awakens that same morning in his cell, where the thief from before is thrown in the cell next to him. It's revealed that this is a concurring event for her, so together Marty and Thief are easily able to escape and head somewhere safer. Thief leads Marty to the house she shares with her roommate, the Mage. The Mage specializes in magic similar to that of the Masked Man, but he's different in that his intentions aren't evil. Marty warns the Mage and Thief about the Masked Man, which worries them both. The Mage brainstorms his next steps while giving Marty a book to read that may tell him more about the Necromancer. Marty returns to his house, surprising both Evelyn and Quinn. By the way, Knight's real name is actually Evelyn, so I'll refer to her as that from here on out. Marty fills everyone in on what's going on, then goes back to the Mage's house for the night. While all this is going on, it's revealed that Shay, the Baron's wife, is working with the Masked Man, who's hiding in the undergrounds of Oakhold. Obsessed with Bryce's miraculous ability to repel his magic, the Necromancer sends Shay to look for Bryce with the intention of possessing him. A few days later, Shay brings a teenage boy named Felix to the Necromancer. This frustrates the Necromancer as his pawn can't even complete a simple task. Despite being weak from the explosion, the Necromancer attempts to wipe Felix's memory and sends Shay to take him back to the main city. Back at the Mage's house, the Mage departs Oakhold to warn even more kingdoms of the threat of the Necromancer. Thief and Marty head back to Evelyn and Quinn, where they come up with a plan to repitch their story to the Baron, this time with emphasis on finding Bryce and any other missing folk from the boat attack. The following day, they do just that. However, Felix, the kid from before, is also telling the Baron about his experience with the Necromancer, meaning the memory wipe was not successful. Marty and Evelyn interrogate Felix and bring him back to their house, where all the missing dots are connected. From this interrogation, it's concluded that the Masked Man is alive and in Oakhold as they speak. Very suddenly, a weakened Bryce enters Oakhold during the night and is quickly captured by a friendly guard, Danny. When Danny and Bryce are conversing about the events, a knock on the door is heard, and Bryce is captured by the Masked Man himself. Bryce is brought to the secret underground lair where his possession has already begun. Everyone's continuing to live out their lives in Oakhold when the Mage's house is, unfortunately, broken into. The gang explores the rubble and can only conclude that certain pages from a few different books have been stolen, mostly from the same book that the Mage gave Marty. More on that later. Meanwhile, the Mage reaches the Kingdom of Donan, a city destroyed by a cult many years previously. It's here where he warns the Queen about the Necromancer's uprising. The Queen permits him to begin training an army in Donan to eventually bring to Oakhold, hoping this plan will stop the Necromancer. Playing both sides of the story, Shay sits down with the Baron to have a conversation. The Baron reveals there's a war in Flinteria, the very first destroyed kingdom, and he's needed as a general. Shay realizes this is perfect for the Necromancer's plan, so she persuades the Baron to leave Oakhold, explaining that she'll watch over the kingdom while he's gone. Bryce is shown being possessed again by the Necromancer, this time focusing on Bryce's past friendship with Evelyn. The Necromancer insists many times that Bryce will see his friends, aka Marty and Evelyn, very soon. Just days later, Bryce reconnects with Marty and Evelyn. Bryce lies about what has happened to him, eliminating any possibility of the Necromancer being in Oakhold. The reconnection is short-lived, as Bryce must return to his duties as a squire at the castle. With the Baron gone for good, the Necromancer and Shay plan an attack on the Oakhold castle. The Necromancer has now possessed Danny, Bryce, and a few of his guards. Together, they're able to siege the castle and take over Oakhold. Without a leader, the army collapsed and the entire city fell under the Necromancer's evil reign. It's time I tell you about all the book drama. Firstly, the mysterious book is titled The Legend of the Key. The Keys are a group of gods centered around elemental power, including fire, earth, water, air, etc., just like any other movie. However, there were additional elements including death, life, void, and creation. The basic story is that the Keys kept all balance to the world, but when their children, the Kais, turned against them, it brought a war that shaped the world to what it is today, corrupted. Many Keys and Kais were wiped out, and that's pretty much all you need to know for now. Now back to the main plot. The story jumps 3 months later when the mage returns to Oakhold, but without his army. He finds the city in shambles and is attacked by some newly possessed guards. Eventually escaping via teleportation, the mage runs into Thief, who takes him to the gang's bunker. These possessed guards report back to the Necromancer, describing the mage as a mysterious purple figure who can use magical powers similar to the Necromancer. The Necromancer is intrigued by this and sends the guards to look for the mage. The secret bunker houses only about 20 of Oakhold's civilians, including all the main characters. To put it simply, after the Necromancer took over the castle, nobody could be trusted and everyone was forced into hiding. With the mage having returned to Oakhold, he reveals to everyone that he has an army that's fully trained and he'll need to depart soon to go retrieve them. Insert lots more catching up here. Tension between Evelyn and Quinn causes an emotional conversation between Marty and Evelyn, revealing Evelyn's love interest to be Quinn. Because they're in an underground bunker, they must send someone to get food once a week. Thief decides it's her turn, so she goes to get food. More on that later. When looking for food, Thief is spotted by guards who chase her down until she's finally captured. Taken yet again into another jail, it's revealed that Felix also happened to go looking for food, and they've both been captured. Bryce has been trained in magical power, so he tortures Thief and Felix while disguised as a guard. The bunker gang wake up to Thief and Felix having gone missing, so Quinn volunteers to find them. Evelyn tries to stop him by confessing her love, to which Quinn reciprocates. However, this doesn't stop Quinn from going after his friends. Quinn makes a promise to Evelyn that he'll be back before sunset. The mage also leaves during this time to get the army back at Donan. Back at Oakhold's castle, Bryce is near the peak of his possession. The main villains, now the Necromancer, Bryce, Shay, and Danny, discuss how they must find the rest of the bunker gang and Bryce must be the one to kill them. Quinn's search for Thief and Felix goes south when Danny and her guards almost capture him. After Danny and her guards chase him throughout Oakhold, Quinn ends up hiding in his old house. As the sun sets, Quinn doesn't leave the house. Footsteps indicate that Evelyn has come to him, but instead, the Necromancer reveals himself to be inside the house. In a rather dark twist, Quinn exclaims,
"We meet again."
The Necromancer's response is,
"Indeed, young Puclin."
The Necromancer's purpose of being there is to bring Quinn to his side in hopes of capturing Marty. The Necromancer reveals that he is the Death Key and that death itself is the only way he can live. Meanwhile, in their cell, Thief and Felix escape due to Felix's lucky choice of the right key to open their cell door. After avoiding Shay, who is sound asleep, the coast seems clear. However, when they're exiting the lair, Danny catches them and a fight occurs. Thief and Felix both hold their own to Danny, eventually defeating her and continuing to run, this time through the sewer. In a rush, Shay awakens to help Danny corner them. Danny chases Felix and Thief through the sewer until eventually a click in her possession causes her to let them go. This error in the Necromancer's magic is detrimental to the rest of the story. Shay and Bryce, confused at the current situation, reluctantly let Thief and Felix go. Danny tells Shay and Bryce what happened, and they can conclude that everything is supposed to happen that way. There's a definite reason as to why the necromancer's magic failed. A being, possibly, controlling his magic. Quinn didn't come back by sunset. This worries Evelyn to high heavens. Evelyn and Marty go out looking for Quinn, which is when they see him through the window talking to the necromancer. Everyone feels extremely betrayed, especially when she realizes Quinn is beginning to side with the necromancer. Before Marty and Evelyn can prevent Quinn from turning evil, guards spot them and they're forced to defend themselves. This fight ends when Evelyn brutally murders a guard despite him having surrendered. The necromancer and Quinn continue their conversation, where Quinn eventually pledges to become the necromancer's apprentice. Right when you think Quinn is evil, he betrays the necromancer, having stalled the entire time. The necromancer is infuriated by this, forcing onto Quinn a similar fate to his sister, fire. Marty suddenly bursts inside and takes away the necromancer's staff, throwing it outside. Thief and Felix come right behind him to aid Quinn. Marty and the necromancer are throwing hands while Thief and Felix escort Quinn outside of Oakhold and into the forest. The necromancer sets fire to the house, admitting he ultimately doesn't care about Oakhold. Now he only cares about Marty. The necromancer reveals that Bryce is on his side and will be coming soon, so Marty runs out with the necromancer's staff. Everyone reconvenes at a small camp in the forest where Quinn is being treated in a pond for his burnt skin. Everyone suddenly realizes that during all the commotion, Evelyn was still back at Oakhold. This prompted Marty to go looking for her. Evelyn sits staring at the sunrise, devastated by Quinn's betrayal and horrified by her decision to murder a guard. Marty's able to comfort her and bring her back to the forest with the rest of the gang, where she reconnects with Quinn and gains a better understanding of what happened. Meanwhile, Marty, Felix, and Thief come up with a plan to weaken the necromancer. If Shay, Danny, and Bryce were able to let them go, then there has to be a crack in their possession. Marty believes it's a good idea to send someone to tell Shay that the Baron has died in war, thus making her mentally weak. Returning to the castle, the necromancer is furious with his pawns for not having helped him. He proceeds to torture Shay and Bryce some more, like they need it. By this time, the mage and his army have reached the outskirts of the forest, settling near the gang's main campground. The gang reconnect with the mage and the new army, and send a guard to tell Shay that the Baron has died. The messenger guard tells the necromancer, who sadly relays the information to Shay. Shay is devastated to hear this news. So devastated, in fact, that she sings an entire ballad about her motivation to continue forward. At the end of the song, she regains her motivation and decides she's tired of the necromancer's rule and wants to somehow make up for it. After Shay's rather lovely musical number, the necromancer enters where they develop a plan. The plan is to burn Oakhold to the ground, hopefully leading Marty and the others back to them. Bryce burns through Oakhold using his power from the necromancer's possession. He's at his fullest potential, ready to fight. The necromancer instructs Bryce not to kill Marty. It is essential that he take Marty alive, but everyone else is disposable. From the forest, the mage notices Oakhold's fire and wakes everyone up in the middle of the night. The gang and the Donan army have a meeting to discuss their battle plan, opting to split into a distraction and a flank army. The mage sits down with Marty to talk more about the specifics. The gang have the necromancer's staff, which means he's essentially powerless and that they have the upper hand. The mage reveals that a mage like him doesn't have unlimited power, so they will need to rely mostly on their army to win the battle. The mage prefaces to Marty that as the leader, it's integral that he make the right decision that night. The army moves to the front gate and enters Oakhold by lowering the drawbridge. After defeating a few guards, they separate into the two armies. The flank army makes their way toward the castle and are forced to surrender, opposite to how it was supposed to go. Meanwhile, the distraction army rescues the remaining people at the bunker, including the bartender and Rose, a young girl. Afterwards, Evelyn is sent to the middle of the battlefield to distract Bryce. Despite Bryce believing he's normal, Evelyn insists that he's possessed and isn't truly a monster, all while everyone else watches from a distance. The mage quickly intervenes, causing a quick battle between him and Bryce. Meanwhile, the necromancer uses a knife against Rose's mother to bargain for his staff. When Marty reveals that he doesn't have it, the necromancer kills the mother. The necromancer is then able to get his staff back from Quinn, who had previously surrendered with the flank army. Bryce and Evelyn share moments of their past as Bryce quickly acts in and out of possession, slowly breaking from it. Bryce is able to confess his love for Evelyn, but is quickly repossessed when a powerful spell is cast from the necromancer. When Bryce raises Evelyn in the air with the intent of killing her, both armies attack. Bryce is able to defeat some of the guards, but ultimately is pinned to the ground and forced to surrender with the necromancer watching it all. Lying on the ground, Bryce is at his weakest. Evelyn whispers a familiar phrase, "Why hello there, my name's Knight, who are you?" which echoes in his head non-stop. The necromancer can tell Bryce is once again about to break from his possession, so he fires yet another spell on Bryce, causing Bryce to rise up and defeat every single person there. However, Evelyn remains. Bryce begins to kill her, but in a miraculous turn of events, Marty makes the ultimate decision to sacrifice himself. Despite the necromancer saying to keep Marty alive, Bryce proceeds to kill him. Both sides lost the battle. The crew and what's left of the Donan army go back to the forest, where they mourn Marty's death. The Necromancer is furious with Bryce for having killed Marty. After a lot of feuding between Bryce and the Necromancer, Bryce decides to free Danny and Shay from their possession completely. Bryce has now become so powerful that he no longer needs to leech off the Necromancer. It's now the Necromancer leeching off of him. The defeated Necromancer returns to the battlefield to find Marty's body being gone. In yet another surprising twist, Marty isn't dead. He awakens in a white void belonging to the key of life, Darren. Darren questions Marty about his motivations and goals so that he can decide if Marty would be worthy enough of returning to the mortal realm. After all, Marty was killed by magic, so surely he can be revived by magic as well. Meanwhile at the castle, Bryce and the Necromancer engage in several fights, with Bryce dominating most. Their final fight ends in a similar situation to the very beginning fight on the Gistreef boat between them, both flying back and no clear winner. This is what makes them cease. They both know that Marty has the potential of coming back, and they agree it'd be better to work together to stop that, so they go looking for the gang in the forest. In the forest, the mage is able to speak with Darren, discussing possible ways that Marty can come back. The only realistic way without breaking several rules of the key code would be a soul transfer. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves. Bryce and the Necromancer arrive at the forest camp, looking for Marty's body. By now, the Necromancer can finally deal with the purple figure. While the Necromancer and the mage duel, Bryce handles Evelyn, Thief, Felix, and Quinn. Ultimately, there's no victor between the mage and the Necromancer. Instead, the Donan Queen comes to the rescue with a new army, this time one from 3 more kingdoms. This small army surrounds the Necromancer and forces him to surrender. The mage and Donan Queen head off into the forest with Marty's body to initiate the soul transfer. There's no time to do anything else. Bryce mentally toys with Evelyn some more until finally knocking everyone to the ground. He decides to join the Necromancer. Shay and Danny seize this opportunity and take the bodies back to Oakhold. Ultimately, the mage sacrifices himself in the soul transfer. Although, this soul transfer was different. Marty would be reborn as himself, but instead of human, he's now a key. The key of life, a phoenix. The Necromancer ditches Bryce to fight the army, desperately scared of what he foresaw with Marty assuming the form of a phoenix. Bryce ends up being knocked out and tied up. The Necromancer runs to the center of Oakhold and mysteriously disappears into the sky before Marty can catch him. More on this later. Meanwhile in Oakhold, the unconscious folk awaken and are caught up by Shay and Danny, now turned good. Marty meets them here and they have a quick reunion. They quickly piece together that the mage has passed. Most of the gang decide to wait in Oakhold for the Necromancer to return, while Thief and Felix handle the situation in the forest. The Necromancer is shown in a black void, exactly opposite to Davern's white one. This is where he greets his master, Vance, the real Death Key. It is revealed that the Necromancer leeches his power from Vance, so the Necromancer isn't an actual key. Vance is furious with the rebirth of a life key and insists that the Necromancer kill him at once. The Necromancer returns to Oakhold to find Marty patiently awaiting his turn. The two engage in a fight, both physical and magical. Help is provided by Quinn, Evelyn, and Danny. When the Necromancer realizes he can't beat Marty, he cowardly teleports back to Vance's void. At his angriest, Vance removes all power that the Necromancer has. Vance decides he can't trust one pawn to do the job, so he must acquire an army. Thus, Vance sends the Necromancer back to Oakhold to die. The gang, now reunited with the forest army, is shocked to see the Necromancer's return. The Necromancer does his best to run away, but is ultimately pinned against a wall, where he's revealed to have been Oakhold's Baron all along. Everyone is shocked, and probably you too. In the end, Bryce is the one to kill the Baron, sending him off a high wall and right in front of the bartender's tavern. Yep, that's blood. To their knowledge, everything is solved. A funeral for the mage is held and the gang decide where they need to go next. Shay, having 3 kids, will end up giving them up for adoption to some of the gang. Meanwhile at the docks, Marty realizes that as a key, he must devote the rest of his time to helping others. Marty makes the difficult decision to leave his friends behind. The Donan and multi-kingdom armies head back to their homes, and the fate of Bryce remains unknown. 5 years later, the main gang is having dinner in a new, different village. What's surprising is that Marty shows up too. However, I leave you with a dark presence shown watching them, waiting to strike. Wow, that took a lot longer than expected. Anyways, that's the recap for you. I hope this helped you better understand the story and fill you in on what you missed if you're new to Dark Times. I cannot wait for September 12th. I promise you will be amazed. I'll see you then.